You weren't the strongest, you weren't the fastest, but you were the one who kept going. From the first time a ball hit your foot, you were already chasing it down. Not because anyone told you to, not because you understood positions, but because you felt it, like something in your legs knew they were meant to move. Your first coach didn't ask questions. He just pointed to the middle of the pitch and said, "You run everything." And you did. You never stopped. You weren't a striker, you weren't a center back, you were the kid in the middle who did both, without getting thanked for either. That's how you became a midfielder. And the thing is, you kind of loved it at first. Being involved in everything, defending 1 minute, launching an attack the next, you touched the ball more than anyone. You covered more ground, you figured that had to count for something. But it didn't. Not really. Because when the forward scored, he got the high fives. When the keeper made a save, he got the applause. When you intercepted, tracked back, and started the move that led to a goal, nobody remembered that part. Nobody ever remembers the part before the highlights. And then there's her. She's in the stands every game, she knows the striker's name, she's wearing his number on a bracelet. You jog off at halftime, shirt soaked in sweat, heartbeat hammering behind your eyes, and she doesn't even look at you. You tell yourself you don't care, but you do. Because you want her to see what it takes to be the one holding everything together. You want someone to see it. You study the greats. Conte, who runs like he's powered by something the rest of us don't have. Milner, who's still sprinting in the 90th minute at 37. The ones who never asked for attention, just showed up, broke lines, kept going. You try to do the same. You press harder, tackle cleaner, pass quicker. You're always the solution, but never the star. At practice, you win every fitness drill, every one-on-one. You shut down the flashy kids who dance on the ball and post clips later. But when game day comes, it's their names in the announcements. You get underrated as a compliment. Like they're saying, we don't talk about you, but you're useful. That sticks with you. There's a game where you cover more distance than anyone else on the pitch. You check your GPS tracker later, 11.2 kilometers. You look at the forwards, 6.9. He scored a tap-in and posted about it with a fire emoji. You made the run that opened the space. You made the pass before the assist. No mention, not even a tag. And she's in the background of that post, smiling next to him. So you tell yourself again, you don't care. But you still show up early. You still tape your ankles and stretch your hamstrings before anyone else even walks onto the field. You still play every second like someone might finally notice. But they don't. And that's when it really starts to hurt. Not physically, not yet. Emotionally. Like you're giving everything just to be part of something that treats you like furniture. You were born to run. And they noticed. But they never saw you. You think you're used to it by now. The grind, the silence, the way the game passes over your name. But something changes when it starts to cost you. Not just energy, identity. You're still running, still doing the dirty work, still tracking back after the winger loses the ball and jogging forward to support the next attack. But you start feeling it. The weight in your legs, the ache in your lungs, the doubt in your mind. It happens gradually. You realize you're the only one chasing both ends of the field. You cover for the right back when he pushes too high. You slide over when the striker refuses to press. You're the one whose body is stretched like a rubber band across 90 minutes. One mistake? Your fault. A goal conceded? Why didn't you close him down? You stop counting the miles you run, it doesn't matter. You start counting the times no one says thank you. And she's still there. Now she's in the front row, wearing the striker's hoodie, taking selfies in the stands, cheering when he scores from 6 yards out. You're the one who passed it to the winger, who crossed it to the box, who made the dummy run to pull the defender away. But no one tracks that. No one writes that down. He gets the highlight. You get the winded jog back to position. You tell yourself you're not jealous. You tell yourself this is what midfielders are supposed to do. Facilitate. Sacrifice. Be the glue. But then your ankle rolls during a training drill and no one texts you to check in. They just ask if you'll be ready for Saturday. That's when it cracks. You think about players like Jordan Henderson. You remember the way people mocked him for years, called him basic, said he was just a runner, until Liverpool started falling apart the moment he wasn't on the field. Or Gundogan, who scored goals, lifted trophies, and still felt like a ghost when the cameras panned the celebrations. You wonder if you're next in that line, the unsung, the underloved. At night, you scroll through her page, vacation photos, game day smiles, his arm around her shoulders. He's got a few goals this season, mostly off penalties and rebounds. You don't even blame him. He's playing the game that rewards moments. You're stuck in the one that demands endurance. You finish matches with scratches on your shins, sweat in your eyes, and nothing to show but soreness. Nobody notices your pass completion rate, your tackles, your movement off the ball. They just know whether you won or lost, and who scored. You carry the weight, but someone else lifts the trophy. And yet, you show up again. You tape up, lace your boots, watch the film, correct your spacing, adjust your press angles. You do it because someone has to, and deep down, you still think maybe one day, someone will see it. But midfield isn't where you get seen. Midfield is where you break. By now, you don't just play midfield. You are midfield. You don't chase anymore, you anticipate. You don't react, you orchestrate. You see the play 2 passes before it happens. You don't need speed, you have timing. You know when to draw the foul, when to kill momentum, when to whisper to a younger teammate to cover the line before they even realize they're out of position. You've stopped trying to impress, not because you don't care, but because you've accepted the truth. Midfielders don't get remembered, they get relied on. You've become the one the coach can't replace. When the game falls apart, he doesn't yell at the defense, he looks at you. Fix it. When the young striker stops tracking back, it's you who covers the space. When the press breaks down, it's you who patches it together with one smart foul and a tired look. You're not a star, you're a system. And it shows in your face. You walk differently now. Not arrogant, just weathered. Like a player who's seen too many losses they didn't cause and too many wins they didn't get credit for. One game, a scout comes to watch a flashy new winger, you dominate the midfield. Control every tempo shift. Quietly own every duel. You leave the field without a mention. The winger gets a trial, you get a pat on the back and a stat sheet no one will read. You think of Toni Kroos, surgical, perfect, forgotten. Of Luka Modric, who ran matches like a conductor, but had to win the Ballon d'Or before people really noticed what he'd been doing all along. Even now, when pundits talk about them, they say things like underrated. The backhanded compliment of kings without crowns. And then one afternoon, you see her again. Not in the stands, not at a game. You're grabbing a coffee after practice, limping a little from a bruised quad when you hear your name. She's older now, prettier somehow, softer. She laughs and says, "Weren't you the guy who always ran a lot?" That line hits you harder than any 2-footed tackle ever could. You smile, nod, and say, "Yeah, that was me." She tells you she remembers how hard you used to work. Says it like a footnote, like something people admire, so from a distance. Then she talks about someone else. You're not sure if it's the striker. Maybe, maybe not, doesn't matter. You walk away with your coffee and a limp thinking, she saw me run, but she never saw why. That night, you rewatch game film alone. Freeze frame a play where you intercept a pass, turn your body before the press closes in, and switch the ball to the wing that leads to a goal. The commentator says nothing, just shouts the scorer's name. You press pause, and realize no one ever clapped for the pass before the assist. No one ever cheered for the shift and balance. But that was the moment. That was your moment. You know now, you'll never be the headline. But without you, there'd be no story. You don't bounce back like you used to. The bruises linger longer. The turns feel heavier. You still run, but now it feels like you're dragging your body through a game that only seems to get faster. You play with compression sleeves, tape, anti-inflammatories. Every match is a negotiation between pain and purpose. You stretch religiously. Ice after every session. But deep down, you know the truth. You're wearing out, and they still want more. The younger guys are flashy, but inconsistent. The system falls apart without you. Coaches beg you for one more season. Just hold the midfield together while the new kids learn. They need your guidance. They don't say you're still great, they say we can't replace you yet. That's not flattery, that's a sentence. You start every game slower, not because you're lazy, but because your legs are calculating now, managing what's left. You watch the ball, not your mark. You win by reading the next 2 moves instead of racing to the first one. Like Busquets in his final years, barely sprinting, but still making the entire team move around him. Like Schweinsteiger at the end, dragging his knees through the final miles with nothing left to prove. And the younger players, they don't see the effort, just the calm, just the results. They don't see the cracked toenails, the cortisone shots, the private moments when you collapse into the shower after a match, head against the tile, letting the steam hide how close you came to quitting. You play because you have to. Not for fame, not for fun, not even for glory anymore. You play because they need you, because no one else wants the wait. You watch them joke in the locker room, you smile too. But your smile's different now. It doesn't reach your eyes. And then one night, scrolling without thinking, you find her. She's married, family photos, 2 kids. One's wearing a jersey, not yours of course, a striker's number. You look at her smile, the kind that says everything turned out fine. You wonder if she ever really saw what you gave. You wonder if anyone did. A few weeks later, you finally sit out a match. First time in years, you're back locked up after training. Coach tells you to rest. They lose 3-0, midfield collapses. Next day, we need you back. We're lost without you. You laugh, but it's hollow, because that's the problem. They only value you when you're gone. You tape up again. One more match, one more sprint, one more 90-minute war no one will remember. You don't want applause anymore. You just want peace. But midfielders don't get peace. Midfielders get minutes and pain. This is the moment of emotional closure. Looking back, you finally realize what it all meant. Even if the world never did, you don't need the spotlight anymore. You just needed the game to mean something, and it did. You don't play anymore. The boots are hung up, the tape's in the trash, your knees crack just walking downstairs now. You watch matches from the couch, legs crossed carefully, ice pack nearby, out of habit more than pain. They still don't show replays of the press trigger, still don't explain the passing lanes you used to thread, and still only highlight the shot, the goal, the celebration. You used to scream at the screen, now you just nod, because you know how it works. You weren't built for the camera, you were built for the in-between. The moment the ball is won, but before it's played. The run nobody tracks, the space nobody sees. The reason it all worked, but never the reason they remembered. You scroll past old highlights. Not yours. Teammates. Guys you carried, guys you covered for. Guys who wouldn't have lasted 5 minutes if you hadn't been there cleaning up behind them. You don't hate them. You don't even blame them. That was the deal. You remember Xavi's last game. Quiet, surgical, gone, no fireworks, just respect. You think maybe that's the best ending a midfielder can ask for. And her, you never won her over. She never saw it. Or maybe she did, just too late. Doesn't matter. She wasn't really the point. You realize now, all those years, you weren't running for her. You were running for meaning, for the few who did see. The coach who shook your hand longer than the others. The teammate who finally said, "We don't win that game without you." The kid who wears your number now. Not for the goals, but for the grit. You didn't play for fame. You played to make the game work. And you did. Even if no one clapped, even if no one cheered, even if your name faded from the stats and the posts and the memories, you still ran. You still showed up. You still held everything together. And that's why it sucks to be a midfielder.